Hello everybody, my name is Marlo and welcome back to the single player world where today we are going to be doing some interior work. Last episode we designed all of the houses that you can see behind me, well not all of them, these 8 here that are kind of hovering just above my head. Today we're going to be doing the inside of them, and in that last episode I mentioned the idea. Damn, I was really hoping I wasn't going to land in the crop field. Sorry villagers, I have to fix that later. But last episode I mentioned the idea of doing an episode basically revolving all around interior design and kind of my thought process for what I go through when it comes to doing the inside of a building. So yeah, that's the plan for today. Hopefully it should be a fun one and also a helpful one when it comes to design tips. We will get to doing the inside of all of these buildings over here, but just to begin with, we're going to focus on one building in particular, and it's going to be this one right here, for no other reason really, other than it's a pretty good shape. A lot of the builds, this one for example, is on varying Y levels, so we have some funniness on the inside, and quite a lot of them have been built on a diagonal, or there's just something funky going about them. But this one over here is actually pretty house-like. So yeah, this is the build we're going to be focusing on, and I think it's going to be the one that will help you guys out the most. Now, admittedly, this is honestly quite a small house, and I know some of you may be doing bigger builds and trying to fill more interior space than what I'm working with here, but I'm fairly certain everything I'm going to go through today can be applied to any shape of building whatsoever, so whether it's a big one or a small one, I think it all should be pretty helpful. So I'm going to assume that you already have a house built if you're going to be doing some interior design. You would think so at least. If not, step 1 is to of course build yourself a house. But anyway, let's head inside here, and the very first thing I like to do is actually work on the ceiling, because as you can see, this is just what the roof looks like from the outside, and sometimes you can get lucky and have something that looks pretty good, but usually you gotta do something that looks a bit better than what this is right now. And yeah, we're going to be doing some building on camera today. I don't usually do that because it never really goes well for me. I'm super bad at talking and building, or doing anything for that fact, at the same time, so apologies if my commentary seems a bit off this episode, but something I like to do quite a lot, especially if you have a build that has a side with odd numbers, so this is 5 on one of them, it's actually 6 across here. Usually houses have 2 odd numbers, that's generally how it goes, but this one's a little bit different. But anyway, on the side where we have odd numbers, sometimes I like to just have a beam going across the top using some horizontal logs. Now, it looks slightly strange there because we actually have some white terracotta. We may possibly be able to break that. No, we can't, unfortunately, because it's going to be seen from the outside, but yeah, you could do a bit of finagling. We possibly could even put it up a block, but I think it's going to look better if we do it here. So we'll have a horizontal beam going across, kind of looking as though it's being a structure point and kind of holding up the roof that's above it. And yeah, we got that going across, looks okay, but we could certainly use some improvement. So once we got that in place, we're then actually going to go ahead and grab some oak slabs. We're going to use oak slabs because the roof, is already made out of oak. So we're going to be sticking to that. And yeah, we're just going to add a line going all the way across on both sides of these pillars right here. So we don't completely cover it up on both of the sides, but we don't just have a full block showing like that. I think it looks slightly better. And then what we can do is actually utilize this part of the roof and not change any of these blocks, and simply just have 2 more in the middle here. And that alone looks a lot better than what it did before. But there's something else we could do to make it look even better, ever so slightly at least, and is actually to add in some fence gates going along the top here on both of the 2 sides and just open them up. And it kind of looks like these extra little bits that are kind of holding up the ceiling along with the beam going across the center. I like to do this quite a lot. You could even close them and it still looks pretty good, but I personally am going to leave them open. So yeah, that's the first thing I do, is sort out the roof to make it look more like a ceiling. Once I've got the ceiling all complete, the thing I like to work on next is actually the floor. So we're going to be tearing this out in just 1 second, but before we do, I need to actually exit outside of this house and wander on over to this one. Now, I know I said I was going to be sticking to just one house in this video and just keeping to that one right there, but I thought it would be good to give you an example of something you can do for a ceiling design that's much simpler if you don't want to add in the pillar going across and all those fence gates. If you have something that looks a little bit like this, for instance, just a very basic roof design, something that curves over like that, a bit of an arch, you can just simply smooth it out with stairs and slabs. So where we have that full block there on the outside roof part, just put a upside down stair below it just to kind of smooth it out. And then for this one we can very simply just have a line of blocks there at the top, and that just makes it look a bit better than what it was before. So yeah, you can either go a bit more advanced with the ceiling or something super simple like that. Basically the minimum thing we want to do is at least smooth it out with slabs and stairs. So the floor inside of our house here is going to be made out of bricks. Now obviously there are tons of different blocks you could use for a floor design, and brick is probably a fairly obvious option. However, there are some other blocks that are actually really quite nice looking floor material that aren't quite as obvious and you wouldn't think to use maybe, and they're actually the villager workstations, which is why I'm not using them here, because otherwise, say for instance I place down the smithing table along the floor here, I could end up with 30, 40, however many blocks there are in here of whatever the smithing tables one is, weaponsmith maybe, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I'd end up with a bunch of villagers claiming them as a workstation. But if you're not using them for a villager sake, they're actually pretty cool. So very quickly we're just going to hop into a test world and I can actually show you what some of these hidden blocks are, because they might not be super duper obvious. So there are a lot more quote unquote hidden textures in this game than the ones I'm going to show you here. So if you just have a look through the creative menu, you're bound to find a ton of blocks that you may not have thought to originally use at first. So yeah, just have a browse through there if you want to do that instead. But these are a few that I've selected out. The first one is the upside down barrel texture. I absolutely love this. I actually have it on display in my storage room in the survival world. So yeah, I like to use this sparingly. I think it looks really nice. As you can see, simply just a barrel placed upside down. The next one we have is a beehive, admittedly a bit more expensive if you don't have some sort of honey farm, but kind of looks like a bit like a different oak variant. So if you want to go ahead and use that, there's a pretty good idea. And the next two we have here, the smithing table and the blast furnace, are a bit more industrial style, shall we say. If you're making a factory, for example, this is a great block to use on the floor, the blast furnace. The smithing table top doesn't look particularly good. However, the underside of the smithing table looks fantastic. It's very dark. I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see this, but yeah, if you want to add this on a ceiling, there you go. And I've also picked out a couple of other ceiling blocks that may not be super duper obvious at first. So we have the bottom side of the composter here, the bottom side of the loom, which also has a really nice side texture, kind of looks like a couple of drawers in my opinion. And then we also have the stone cutter, kind of like the stone slab but slightly different. So yeah, there's just a couple of ideas. However, as I said, there are plenty more. Pixel Riffs, who some of you may already know from the Hermitcraft recap or just from his channel in general, the survival guide in particular, made a video on all of the hidden blocks in Minecraft a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, so I'll do my best to leave a link to that in the description. However, there's a pretty good chance I could forget, so just head over to Pixel Riffs channel and check it out for yourself if you want to take a look at some of those textures. So once I've got my ceiling and my floor in place, the next thing I like to do is figure out where I want all of my furniture, shall we say, is going to be going. So obviously, if you're building a survival home, for instance, it's going to be a little bit different to what I'm doing here with a typical villager house, because a lot of these blocks are going to be more cosmetic as opposed to actually helpful. You personally might have to figure out where your smelting and your furnaces are going to go and where your storage is. But something that have in common in both of those builds is a bed. So I'm thinking we place our bed here just beside the window, possibly have a bit of a table either side of it, and I'm just marking these out with any type of temporary block just so we can get an idea of what this is actually going to look like and what space we're filling up. So we got our bed over there, and I'm thinking maybe we have a table in front of this window here with a chair either side of it so they can look out and have some nice views. There's some houses and some trees and a big old oxeye daisy in the way, but yeah, so we got a bed, a table and chairs. Maybe we could do some sort of mini kitchen setup over here, but we'll just fill in that one block gap for now, possibly just do a little bit of a desk or something along the lines of that. And then if we just take a step back, look for open space, there's a big one over here in the corner. So maybe we could have a coat rack here in an armor stand just beside the doorway, or maybe just do something a bit bigger in the corner. We don't even have to necessarily figure out what it's actually going to be, just the space we want to fill up. So yeah, we'll leave that there for now. Then we'll take another step back, and I'm thinking we could possibly do with something in the center here. Maybe a mini table, or even something as simple as a little bit of a rug. So yeah, all we're really doing here is just trying to figure out a layout for where all of the blocks that we're going to place down now are going to go inside of this house. And we eventually end up with something like this, which is virtually just the stone block layout that we had before, with obviously the stone blocks being replaced by actual blocks that we want inside of here that look good. So for example, our bed is now actually a bed and not just a stone slab to sleep on. Probably a lot comfier, I would imagine, but just beside it we got our scaffolding table with something to go on top of there eventually. Over in this corner here, I made a table. I'm not really sure if I like this or not. I might do something else. I'm not sure. Gonna have a think on that in a little bit. And then over here, next to our window, we have our table and chairs. Just super simple, you know, sign next to a stair as a chair design, and fence post with a pressure plate on top as a table design. Very basic detailing stuff right there. So yeah, super simple. Our rug also got made a little bit bigger. It's now 6 blocks instead of 2, and it's actually a combination of full wall blocks and carpet with some hidden lighting underneath the carpet blocks. And this just makes it look a bit like a shaggy carpet with the varying levels. You know, you can see the carpet sticking up and down. I know it's kind of symmetrical in a way and it's got a pattern to it, but this is a very small rug. It looks better if you were to have a whole carpeted floor, for example, just having a mix of those two. So yeah, if you want to do something like that, there's a good tip for you. And then over here, we just have a little bit of a miniature kitchen setup. Furnace and loom with the drawers on display. Custom texture, by the way, those 4 pixels to make it look like a handle. So yeah, that is the main furniture, shall we say, added into it. Now what we have to do is my favorite part of interior design, detailing. Basically getting a bunch of different blocks added in here, you know, flower pots, lanterns, stuff in item frames, just to make this all look a little bit better. And the finishing detail is a couple of armor stands placed in varying directions, which is meant to be some sort of coat hanger. I don't know, I didn't want to just do a normal armor stand, so I went ahead and doubled them up. Just beside it, we also have our tripwire hook, which I'm pretending is somewhere to just plop your hat on, in case there's no room left on the coat hanger over here. But I did end up going ahead and replacing the table over here with a bookshelf stack. So yeah, a little bit of a reading corner. We got a plant pot up there, and yeah, book that someone is reading, obviously. And a tripwire hook again, which is actually meant to be a key inside of an item frame, which would look a lot better if we didn't have the item frame here. We're going to come back to that later on in the episode, but continuing on with the look around, everything else is the same over here, I think. Don't believe I've changed anything there. We got a plant pot on top of our scaffolding, of course, and then over here in our little kitchen area, we have a cod that is about to go in the furnace and be cooked up. Actually, is this a cooked cod? Okay, it's already been cooked. It's just come out the furnace. And then we have a detector rail on top of the actual furnace here. Kind of looks a bit like a hob, you know, put some pots and pans on top of there. And then this is a light grey banner placed on top of the block below it, so that we only get the top part showing. Looks a little bit like a towel. I use this quite a lot in my builds. And yeah, I think that is everything that I wanted to add in. I've just remembered something because I've stared at this block right here. I wanted to put a clock above the bed here, just as some sort of alarmed clock situation. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back and add that in later. But yeah, for the most part, that is the interior of this building all done. And as far as going about doing all of this, what I'd honestly recommend you do is just hop into a creative world and just have a browse through the creative menu and see what blocks pop out to you, specifically in the decoration section. There's so many blocks you can use, and yeah, there's just tons of stuff in there. So yeah, have a look around and then go ahead and craft it in survival and do your best to build it in survival. Honestly, my advice, my true advice for any building whatsoever is use creative. And I don't mean just hop into creative mode in your real world here. Just go into a test world, do some planning where you've got access to all the blocks, and then copy it on over into survival. That's what I do for literally anything, with the exception of these small houses here. This is all kind of like off the cuff. But yeah, what I'm going to do now is actually do what we've done here for this building for the other, I think it's 7 remaining homes that we have here, and I'll do a very quick tour around just to give you guys some inspiration, hopefully. Several hours later, and the interiors have been fully complete. As you can see, take a little sneak peek inside this window right here, and as I said, we'll go around and I'll show you all of these individually, what I've done for each of them. But before we do, let me tell you about what I'm currently holding in my hand, because I am super duper excited about it. So those of you who saw last episode, you will remember that I mentioned about adding in a certain data pack, and I got the go ahead from you guys. You all seemed cool with it. You said I could just add in whatever data packs I want. It doesn't really matter. You're not all that bothered by it. And yeah, I'm thankful for that, because this one right here is absolutely awesome. So those of you who watch Hermitcraft will probably recognize this book. It's actually the armor stand book that's used by quite a lot of the hermits. Specifically, Zombie Cleo is a master of the armor stands, and it's not really the armor stands that I want this for. There is actually a feature, as you can see here, for item frames where you're able to make them invisible. This is what I'm super duper excited about. So if we just step inside here and go to our Tripwire Hook, which if I can't remember if I said or not, this is meant to be like a key to the front door that they've just kind of placed on top of this block here, which looks okay in the item frame. But if we just open the book up here, kind of stand next to it, I think is how it works. Scroll along, click invisible item frame, and it becomes invisible. How amazing is that? So cool. So yeah, there we go. It's meant to be like a front door key, so you can lock it behind. I know it's like the same item here. It's a little bit weird, but yeah, I think it's awesome. And there's actually a building in this village here that I've been waiting to use this book on like crazy, because it's going to make it look so much better. And that is the Blacksmith Shop. And by the way guys, since I now have a mass supply of emeralds and I'm able to get name tags basically for free, drop your horse names in the comments down below for these two guys outside of the Blacksmith Shop. They seem lonely without a name. I don't know how that makes them lonely, but it does. So yeah, any name suggestions for these two guys, drop them down below and we'll try to do that next episode. But yeah, if we just walk on up, I don't think there's anything here on the bottom level, but at the top, we have a ton of tools that are on display. Now, I'm not sure how it's going to work with the ones on the walls, but if we just take one here on the table, for example, I don't know how to specifically select one. I'm just going to stand on it and hope for the best. But if we just scroll all the way across, invisible item frame, and there we go. It just looks like there's a sword on display. So I'm going to go along and do this for all of these items. Oh yes, that is so much better than it was before. How awesome does that look? Admittedly, they're like tiny tools, but I don't think that really matters too much. And I'm fairly certain I could maybe do some armor stand trickery here. This is like the only thing I think I might use it for. But if we were to get ourselves an armor stand and kind of position it so that it's holding the pickaxe and it looks like it's through this hole right here, I'm not sure how tricky and finagly it's going to be. I might give it a go off camera sometime and just see if I can do it. But yeah, I think that's how we could get that to work right there. But it doesn't look too bad, just kind of slotted in behind. Maybe even if I just got rid of that. No, that looks weird. We'll have to put it back. But yeah, there we go. How much better does this look, guys? Absolutely amazing. The episode here is starting to get on just a little bit, so we're going to make this... Oh, I'm inside the house now. Hello! Through the glass. Let's make this quick, otherwise it's going to be a bit of a long one. So, yeah, not going to spend too much time kind of explaining each of these, just maybe walk in and take a glance around, giving you guys some ideas. That's the thing I did with the clock, by the way, that I was meant to do in the other building. Did it in this one. So there's one house out the way with this one, a little bit of a smaller one, got a bit of an outside working area where we just put a grindstone and a cauldron and a few other bits and bobs. Made use of the armor stands here as well. It's like a tiny little weaponsmith in here. And then moving on to this one, it's a bit more of a bakery themed. It's the only one with a chimney, so a little bit of a kitchen and all some other stuff on display out here. Shelves I use quite a lot, by the way, if you have an open spot on a wall. Quite nice to just use some spruce trapdoors and put some stuff on display up there. So there's that house all done. I guess let's go in this one first of all, or next. Not first of all at all, we're halfway through. This is what this one's looking like right here. It's on a diagonal, so a little bit of a weird looking building if you don't like that sort of stuff too much. This one, even weirder. It's on a big old slope. So yeah, a bit tricky to build in this one. Got some more hidden lighting behind those trapdoors. And then have we been in? No, we got this one to go in, and then one last one after that. This one is super duper small. It literally just has a bed and a chest and a table basically. And then the final one, I believe, is over here. Yes, I do quite like how this one turned out. Got a nice little reading table here, some bookshelves and a table and more beds. It's basically a bunch of the same stuff, really. There's only so much I can do with a small build like this, and they do tend to look a bit samey, but also different at the same time. So yeah, that is all we're going to do for interior decorating today. I do really hope it has helped you out though. I may do like a separate video at some point in the future when I have the time on like a general bigger and overall interior design and how I go about things properly that way. I guess I could probably go a bit more in depth in a one-off video. But yeah, this is just kind of like a little one in the survival world. But anyway, we actually have 3 more things left to do in this area over here. One of which is to drag the pathway going on through to each of these houses. And the next thing is to add a bunch of texture into our white terracotta along here to make them look a bit more like these buildings with the bone block and mushroom stem. And then last of all, if I've got time, I might add in a bit of custom trees and little bits of foliage here and there. By the way, I also installed a separate resource pack from Vanilla Tweaks, the bushy leaves. So basically every leaf now in Minecraft has a little bit extra leafage added onto it, and I think it just makes trees in general, as well as custom ones, look a whole lot better. I figured maybe we would stick shaders on for one final look around this finished section of the village. Well, I say finish, probably not entirely. There's still a couple more things I might be able to add in. That's an awful lot of long grass there. Let's break a couple of those. But yeah, there's still a couple more things I might add in. Like over on that section of the village, we have a couple of carts and crates and other little tidbits here and there, but I'm all out of time for today, unfortunately. So we've just got some custom trees, which, by the way, as I said, look extra good with all the bushy leaves. A couple of bone meal and the pathways have been dragged on through, and then we've texturized all of the white terracotta. So yeah, I'd say this little area looks really good. And if we just take a flight back here, frames are a bit choppy over here. I do apologize. It's all the entities and villagers and smoke particles and all this, but yeah, this place is really coming along. I mean, I said this before and I'll say it again, but imagine how nice the entire of this village is going to look when it is just the same as what we have here, but throughout the entire place. It's going to look fantastic, and yeah, very glad we got all of that red concrete powder that was there in the previous episode replaced with finished houses now and complete interiors and all of that other stuff. So yeah, let's actually head inside our first house here where we can end off the episode, because it looks super duper cozy in here, even more so with the shaders on. But guys, thank you ever so much for watching this episode. I really hope you did enjoy, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.